Hi, this is Gary from Texas Zone 8B. I'm here today to talk to you about the 10 easiest in-ground fruiting plants to grow in Texas Zone 8B, 9A, and in the south. First thing I'm going to talk about is going to be the chill hours, because that's very important for almost all your fruit: peaches, plums, pears, apples, even your berries, your blackberries and things of that nature. Have to have a certain amount of chill hours. And what chill hours are is temperatures between 32 and 45 degrees. You'll be in kind of a range that your average, and mine's about 550, 600. And what basically is, that's designed by the plant, that it's a way for it to know how much chill out, how much, if the winter's over with or not. If you have 500 chill hours, it's not going to bloom out until you get 500 of those chill hours that year. So if you have some warm temperatures in January, it's going to know it's not time to bud break yet. Problem comes in if you get some that has, a bunch of chill hours. Alberta peach is one they sell around here almost every year. You can buy an Alberta peach. It has chill hours, 850 chill hours. It's never going to make down here. It's going to bud out late. If it buds out at all, it will leaf out. It's be low vigor. It just doesn't get enough chill hours. The plant never thinks the winter's over with until late in the spring, and by that time the bloom is already deteriorated and it's not going to pollinate. Usually it won't even bloom out. If it does bloom out, it's not going to do anything. Okay, so all your blackberries, your apricots, peaches, pears, apples, they all have chill hours to them. Even your blueberries have chill hours to them. So you kind of got to get that right. Look at your area. Like I say, mine's about 600, 550. So let's say we have a year in which it's, I have a tree that says 250 hours, chill hours, which is low for me. I've got some trees that's like that. Then you turn around and have a really cold early winter like we had last year. Those things may bud out for you in January. That's what happened to me last year. We had all this cold weather around Christmas. It warmed up in the middle of January. Some of my trees started budding out, put on fruit, and then we got a late March freeze and wiped them all out. So that can happen. Even worse is the opposite. Is if you get too many chill hours, 850 hours, Alberta peach, it's just never going to produce. So you want to get those right. Most people say you want to be within about 100 either way, plus or minus. I try to have a variety when it comes to like peaches and stuff, but and some of them it's not that important. So the first tree we're going to be talking about today is going to be, now I rank 1 to 10, the ease of it. The first 4 you can go in any direction you want to. Okay, but the first one I picked was fig tree. And this is our fig tree that I've been growing. It's been growing here for, this will be 6 years this year. Chill hours on it's 100 chill hours. It doesn't matter on figs because, if they do bloom out early, they bloom late. They leave out early, but they do have some leaves on it. They're going to produce again. One reason I put it as top, they're fairly easy to grow. Doesn't really take hardly any fertilizer, if any. You put a lot of mulch down around it. A lot of times that mulch and compost would be enough for it. I do add a little bit of fertilizer because we get a lot of rain. About the only disease that they really seem to get, they will get a little dots on it, like this here. And those would get worse and worse, and then the leaves will fall off. But it leaves back out again, so it's not really that big of a problem. It does need some moisture to it. What I like about it is, though, is if you know somebody that's got a fig tree, okay, you can take this fig and cut it off right there. You can stick it in the ground, and probably 50-60% of the time it's going to root out. I've taken this fig tree here. I've cut off, you can cut one here and then cut one on down here. You want to be on first year growth. I've gotten 100%. My first 6 cuttings that I tried to root, all 6 of them made it. So if you find somebody that's got a fig tree, you like the flavor to it, ask them if you can get a cutting from it. Doesn't cost you anything. When fruit trees now are running about $40 a piece, it's about the cheapest you can find. That's a good thing. Again, there's not a whole lot of bad to them. If you're further up north, they do have some winter damage on certain varieties, but other varieties go all the way up to you know, zone 7, maybe even zone 6. But down here, nematodes are a problem sometimes, but you know, they're a pretty bulletproof tree as long as you give them the moisture that they need. Okay, let's go to second tree. Number 2 on my list is one you might not have heard of. It's called a Jujube tree, sometimes called Chinese date. And some people say it tastes kind of like a dry apple. It's this tree here. This one is a sugar cane, and it produces these little fruits like this. This one's, don't take that one. That one up there, that's right. That's something ate it. Anyway, these are the fruits here. It does have thorns on them. It does produce these little root sprouts that are bad. This here is a kind of root sprout from it. It's got the little bitty fruits on it. However, some people really like them. They have kind of a dry, some people say sweet apple flavor to them. Some people dry them. There are different varieties that are better. Again, it's got a, I think it's like 100, 200 chill hours, but you know, people grow them all over, even up in Kansas, so the chill hours don't really matter that much on this particular one. They're self-fertile, but they do better with a different variety on the tree. We're fruit a little bit better. You know, they're trouble-free, other than the fact they're producing a lot of fruit sprouts on it. It is a lot of Asian communities. It comes from Asia, so they kind of know what it is. The only bad thing is it's hard to figure out what they taste like unless you grow your own, because you're not going to find them in the stores. And if you do find them in the stores, the quality does not stay good except for like 12 hours. But some people really love them. They're drought resistant. I'm not worried these at all. We've been in a really bad drought till we got rain last night. Tree looks fine, producing fruit. You know, it's easy for me anyway. It's been very easy to grow the fruit on it. My only biggest concern, other than the taste for me, is the root sprouts. It does throw up a lot of root sprouts on it. You know, swing around showing the root sprouts in this other one. That's a lot of root sprouts. You can get here and mow them down. It does have thorns on them also, but other than that, you know, if you keep those down, and you can take the root sprouts, if you want to learn how to graft, you can take those root sprouts and graft it to the tree and put up with a new plant, because they are pretty expensive to buy in the store. But if you want to get into grafting, you know, that's pretty easy. But other than that, there's really not any, not really any pest problems. So you know, if you want an easy to grow tree, and if you do like the jujubes, find somebody that's got one that like it. You know, it's an easy tree to grow, drought resistant. You know, it can take, you know, we get 60-inch rainfall on average. We've had some 20-inch rainfalls. I think we have 40-inch rainfalls. They're still growing. So it is on a kind of sandier soil, but I've even heard that even on these clay soils, they do all right also. So, you know, that's a tree you might want to consider. Going on to number 3. Okay, number 3 is a pear tree. What I like about a pear tree is you'll go to I went to old houses out in West Texas, and the old house will be all caved in. Only thing standing out there will be a chimney and a pear tree. They're very drought tolerant. I haven't watered any of my pear trees. They do tend to take a while to start making. You want to get one that's kind of precocious. Like the Warren takes like 10 to 15 years to start producing. That's crazy. You know, I can wait 4 or 5 years, but that's just too long. Chill hours are a problem. You want to make sure that you get one that's you're going to have enough chill hours. There's some varieties that down here just won't do good because it just doesn't get enough chill hours, and they're not going to bloom if they don't get the chill hours. You can kind of go the other way though, because I know some people, Kiefer, I think chill hours is like 400, and my parents who live probably in the 700 range have Kiefer pears. Some years they bloom early, but they still most years make a crop on them. Their Achilles heel is fire blight, okay? You got to get one that's fire blight resistant. If you want to know an example of one that is not, is this one here. This one, pretty much the whole tree has died this year. It's not because of drought, it's because of fire blight. And fire blight will take over. You see the bark kind of gets all brittle, and it looks like somebody's taken a torch and just hit it. And it happened kind of overnight. If you don't get one that's fire, now this one was a field pear that didn't have a name to it. It's not a variety. So you kind of, it probably come from a seedling, so it just didn't have any resistance to fire blight, and when fire blight hit, it took out the, pretty much took out the whole tree. I'll take the thing down. Sad thing is, it was making some pears. This one is a oriental pear, and what it tends to do on this one, like this has a fire blight here, but it kind of goes so far down the tree and stops, and that's what you hope happens. That's what happens with kefir pears. But now you can take the limbs and spread them out when they're younger. That helps them to make a little quicker, but you're still probably looking at 4 to 5 years before they really start making. They would have made a lot of pears this year, but we got a late freeze. They bloomed out real well this year. So, you know, these trees are probably, this is probably their 5th year, maybe 6th year, probably 5th year, because I think this row was done in 4 years. I think that's the 2nd year I was here. But, you know, they're something to consider. If you like apples, grow a pear tree instead. They're a whole lot easier down here in the south. Apples are very difficult to grow down here. I am going to make another video that talks about the hard plants to grow down here, and apples is on that list. But anyway, pear tree, if you like pears. Now, if you don't like pears, don't get one, because you're going to have a mess of pears fall off and it's going to be messy. But if you like pears, they're not that hard to grow. You just got to get the right variety, get one that's fire blight resistant. Do not over fertilize them. If you over fertilize them, it causes blight to be worse. Open wounds, they get infected by them. You don't want to be pruning these during the spring of the year. You don't want to put a lot of fertilizer on, because the fire blight either gets in cuts or gets in the blooms. So if you're putting a lot of tender growth on it, that's where fire blight's going to hit. So just don't over fertilize them. Don't try to get them too vigorous, or you'll have more problems with fire blight. Going on to number 4. Number 4 on my list is neither a fruit nor a tree, but still, it's called a blackberry. Now, a lot of people have picked blackberries and they don't like the thorns, or they've had in the past, they've had some that you know, that were thornless, but they didn't have very good flavor. They've actually got some that's got better flavor now. This is one of the newest ones. It's called Ponca. I like it. It's got really sweet flavor to it. It is completely thornless and stickerless. I say that because raspberries, sometimes I say it's a thornless raspberry, but it's got little stickers on it. Still hurts when you grab it. But these are totally thornless. The only knock to having a thornless one right now, to me, is the fact that birds would get them a little worse, because there's nothing to keep the birds away from them, but they also don't stick you either. I've got Sweetie Pie also. That's another good flavored one. There is a Primark Freedom that people, I've got it too. It's very vigorous plant growing, and it will give you some production in the fall. But you know, there's a few diseases that get on them, but you know, you'll plant the original plant like this one here. If you make the cutting it and you plant it, this here, it's come up this year, and it will make next year. So it makes every other year, or every other year on the cane. So you got primal canes, and you got flora canes. The primal canes are the first year canes. You grow those up, you cut them back, you trellis them up. No, I hadn't trellised mine, but you want to trellis them up. These all are primal canes, because there was none over here. I planted them over here. This here is the flora canes. These made earlier in the year, and then they die. And then I need to get here and trim them out. And but they've kind of taken over right in here, but they're easy to grow. A lot of people say, I want to grow raspberries. They're real tough to grow down here, so don't want to take away from other lists too much. But blackberries are a good alternative. They grow pretty much all over in Texas. Some blackberries you have to worry about them not having enough chill hours. So some of your, I forget the names of them, but some of them need 300, 400, 500 chill hours. So, and some of them do better a little bit further north, but all the ones I've talked about do well. Even down here in the south, get plenty of chill hours. That's not a problem. There was a couple that they were trying that they didn't even know it. You know, a few years ago, I mean, probably a couple of decades ago, they didn't even realize they had chill hours. But certain ones they were trying to grow down here, they were growing in Arkansas, didn't do as well, and they finally figured out, well, they just didn't get enough chill hours. So that is a little bit of a concern, but most of them, I've never seen any that, I think Triple Crown might be one you see every once in a while that probably doesn't get enough chill hours down here. But most of them do have enough chill hours. They are very easy. Make sure you keep them watered, trellis them up, and they should do really well for you. Going on to number 5. Okay, number 5 is one y'all might not have heard about. It's called the lemonade tree, or Jujube. It's a self-fertile citrus. It's very winter hardy. It has went through Snowmageddon when we got down to about 12, 13 degrees 3 years ago. This past year, it got down to about 12 degrees. The only thing we had up there was that black tarp over there. We did suffer some damage. It did die back some, but as you see, it survived. Now, the year it receives the damage, it doesn't produce any fruit. But last year, it produced probably 500-600 fruits on it. We had more fruits we knew what to do with. In fact, when Snowmageddon hit, we was up here that day before it hit, picking off all the fruits on it. We was giving fruits to friends, and I even gave the fruits to my dentist, and he asked if I was giving them to everybody, and I told him, well, you're getting it. So, but they really make a lot of fruit. They may be a little bit biennial. I don't know, because we haven't had 2 great years in a row. But they're very winter hardy. And you can eat it's a cross between they think it's a cross between lemon and orange, and you can eat it like you do an orange. It has no tartness whatsoever. The only thing, the segments are a little bit thick on the skin, so you probably want to peel those back but eat them. But if you like lemons, this is a tree for you. I think it would do just fine up in the Austin area. Far north is that. Getting beyond that, you're going to probably need to pull it in or out. I'm going to try some in a pot just to be sure of. I know Brass's Nursery is the one that sells them, the big wholesale nursery. So, they're a really good tree. I think one that needs a broader audience. I think that it does really well. Just had the typical citrus problems with leaf miners and things of that nature, but really it's been my most productive citrus that I've had. So. And sometimes people with citrus, that can be a problem. Like I say, it grew really quick. It's a vigorous grower. I've got it on trifoliate rootstock, and it's been a winner for us. Okay, I'm going on number 6. Okay, if you're in zone 8B and 9A, you can start, no list is complete unless you talk about Satsumas. Satsumas are very easy to eat. Some of them are seedless, some got seeds in them, but they're very easy to peel. This one, even though we've had, it just went through a flush of growth, even though temperatures in the hundreds was 100 degrees or above for almost a month. In fact, we got up to 113. I have added some supplemental water to it, but they do really well. They are fairly winter hardy. Now this one, what I did from last year is I put 4 T-posts around it. I put landscape fabric around the outside. I filled it up with leaves and grass clippings or whatever, try to get as high as I could on it. Threw a quilt over it, tied all that down, and got very little damage on it. So it is a fairly, it can handle the cold a little bit better, but if you're going to get down into the teens, you're going to need to have some protection for it. It's a good flavor to it. You do want to try to get them on trifoliate, you want to get them trifoliate rootstock. You have a greater winter hardness for you. If you're going to try to grow it up in the Austin area, you're pushing it. There's going to be probably every 2 or 3 or every 4 or 5 years, 2 or 3 years, whatever it's going to be. You may have to give it some protection. You want to plant on the south side of the tree, south side of your house if you can. You want to block that north wind off of it. Wind chill is a problem because it's a number of hours below its freezing point, which maybe this is probably the mid 20s or lower 20s. But if it just dips down to the teens, it comes right back up, it may survive. But if you're getting that wind chill that's keeping it, cold, it's just gonna freeze faster. So, and if it ever freezes enough to make that bark in the bottom split, your tree's dead. May not know it yet, but it's gonna die. But we have had, we've had a couple of cold snaps on it. I protected it a little bit, and we did get fruit off of it last year. So try some of your Satsumas. Just know you're going to have to give it some protection. They also require a fair amount. No, I don't edit my videos. A fair amount of nitrogen. So don't be squeamish to put down some nitrogen. You don't want to add nitrogen after July 1st. What you're trying to do is get this tree to settle down. Right now it's putting up flushy growth, which is fine this time of year. You don't want this happening in December, January. Because if it throws out flushy growth in December, January, and get a cold snap, it's going to hurt this tree really bad. When they throw out the flushy growth, they lose their winter hardiness. So you stop putting the nitrogen on it in July and hope to stress it by the time it gets to the winter time. So far this is fine. It's throwing flushy growth here. That's great. You're getting more growth on it, but you don't want this to happen to you in the winter time. And they're going to keep the leaves on it all winter. So just be careful with the fertilizer late in the year, but early in the year they need a fair amount of nitrogen fertilizer. Go on to number 7. Okay, number 7 is one you probably haven't heard of, but if you ever wanted to grow a cherry tree down here, and if you ever tried it, you know, you probably, almost everybody, in fact, everybody I've ever known that's tried to grow cherry trees have failed. There's a few people that's tried some different varieties of cherry trees or whatever of imitation. This is called Cherry of the Rio Grande. It's not a real cherry, but it does have a kind of cherry flavor to it. I've tried some of the other ones, Suriname cherry and Barbados cherry. I didn't particularly care for them. They have a very strong tannin taste to it. At least the ones I tried. Some people say they're very. This was not bad. Now, I'm talking about in-ground trees. If you notice, this one's in a pot. However, during last year, when we got down to 12 degrees, really cold, I didn't bring this one in. We ran out of room in the garage, and this one just it came in last. It did suffer damage, but it's still alive. So it took down to 12 degrees. It still survived. It does have this flaky bark on it. It also tends to get dry, because the roots are still in a pot. So it does tend to dry out some. So it looks like, don't look good right now, but think about all that it's been through. It's been through a drought with really hot temperatures. It went through some really cold temperatures in a pot, which usually when you put something in a pot, you lose 1 or 2 zones. In other words, if something is good for zone 8 and you put it in the pot, well, you're probably, it's going to get winter damage. If I live in zone 9 and they say it's good for zone 8, I may or may not be able to put it in the pot and survive the winter. Because anytime that you put them in a pot, like your fig trees, figs are usually very, very winter hardy, but when you put them in a pot, they lose a lot of that winter hardiness because their roots will freeze. So this one made it in a pot, just like it sets, it survived. So, it might, do okay. Now, I did see this one this year, HEB, it's a local grocery store or a Texas grocery store. They have a nursery area on the grocery stores, and they had probably 6 or 7 of these at $25 for 3-pound, 5-gallon pots. So it wasn't that expensive, but they are very winter hardy. So if you want something that kind of reminds you of a cherry anyway, this tree would be a good choice for it. The fruit is very perishable. If you pick the fruit in the morning, better be eating it by the afternoon or it's going to go bad on you. But really, I haven't noticed any real disease problems. I need to water it more often, but it's doing okay considering all what it's been through. Let me go on to number 7. Okay, number 8 is a little bit controversial. It's a peach tree. You see them in all the stores. Agri-life people will probably just argue with me. This one looks not real good because we've been in a drought, and I just watered it yesterday. Then we got a rain last night, so it's perked up a little bit. So it's lost most of its leaves, but they are kind of a desert plant. They can take a little bit of drought. We've just had so much drought. It's been so hot. I have neglected it. I've not pruned it. It needs a lot of pruning on it and stuff. The reason people say that it's hard is there's a thing called brown rot that gets on them. And it's just right here. And this is called mummified fruit. And when it does that, it gets all nasty stuff on it. You want to take this, you want to get rid of it, you want to pull them off, you want to get anything that's on the ground, because it's going to spread the spores. And once that tree gets it, it's going to spread to all the other fruit. And once the fruit has it on it, it doesn't do any good to spray. You can't say, oh, I see one that's mummified, I'm going to start spraying it. Well, they've already got it on it. And it may just sit there, and right before the fruit starts ripening, it may start showing itself. The fuzzier the fruit, the less brown rot you get. The good thing about it is if you're a home gardener, backyard orchard sort of, you can get by with it for 2 or 3 years, sometimes 4 years, up to 5 if you're, maybe San Antonio area, up in Austin area, which is a little bit drier. You can get by with it before it hits. But once it hits, then you have to try to address it with some fungicide. A&M does not recommend trying these growing organically, but you can get by with it for a little while. The other problem is you got a thing called plum curculio, which is a worm that gets on them. Again, you have to spray those kind of early, but you can kind of watch. They'll make a little bite, they have crescent moon type, and they get a little deal there. When you see that first happen, you can spray it with one of the herbicides of your choice. You do have to have some fairly powerful herbicide, not herbicides, pesticides, insecticide. So, you know, kind of look up on that. There's really not any organic. Well, there is one called Surround that you can, a powder that you put on that will discourage it from it. You can go that route if you want to, but you have to do that early on. But again, a lot of times those worms won't show up for 2 or 3 years after you plant the tree, and if you don't have any around you. And the other thing is you can eat around worms. I mean, if you got a worm in, if it's not too bad, you can cut the worm out and go ahead and eat the peach. But the good thing about it, when you plant the tree, if it's got a few peaches on it, go ahead and leave the peaches on it, as long as that tree can support that peach. Okay, you don't want to have a dozen peaches on a brand new small tree, but 3 or 4 peaches, see how they taste, that's okay. That's not what the recommendations are, but I've done it. They are fairly vigorous. Fertilize it normally and water it, and you should do good. Just, they do not like wet soil, so don't put it in a place that's going to be standing water at all or anything else. But you put them up in raised beds. You've got wet soils, you can put them in raised beds, and just remember that all your roots are going to be in that raised bed. There's also borers and some other things that hit them. That tree's going to live 6 to 8 years at most. These are 6-year trees, I think, 6 year, and I've got a couple of them that's died on me. But you know, still, I've produced some fruit off of it. So some trees that I planted, I've had it for 4 or 5 years, haven't produced any fruit. So anyway, going to number 9. Okay, number 9 is a persimmon tree. Now I know persimmon trees like slightly acidic soils, so you don't want to get too alkaline on them. This particular tree is a Asian persimmon, or Japanese persimmon, and it's Oriental persimmon. Anyway, one of the Asians. Don't mean to be insensitive, I just can't remember. I dabble in between the different some Asian type fruits, and some I forget what they call them. But this is a non-astringent persimmon. That means that most persimmons, it has to be completely soft before you can eat them, or it's going to make you pucker up. It makes your mouth draw up or whatever. These, once they can still eat them when they're still fairly hard. I think it's Fuyu is the one that this one is. Anyway, think about persimmons, especially if you're in East Texas, if you're east of I-45. Don't forget about that. Again, you have to like the fruit, but if you like the fruit, they are fairly easy to grow. They can take fairly moist soils. I have seen native persimmons growing on levees out in the middle of the field that have water on both sides, and so you'll see them in kind of clay soils also. They really grow. Your native would grow up in East Texas. Like I say, these are improved varieties. So don't forget about the persimmons. If you like persimmons, give them a try. Now, number 10 is, I kind of changed it on this, but I did want to bring this up, they're improved varieties of Chickasaw plums. Now, I have had bad results with just regular Japanese plums. Can't grow European plums down here. But these Chickasaw plums, improved varieties, this one here is Odom, because it will come back with root sprouts. And if anybody needs a tree with it, I can come up a root sprout and give it to them. If you want to come by and pick one up. And the other one's Guthrie, and Guthrie does not root sprout, so it's and so it's nice and clean around it. It doesn't have all these root sprouts growing up all over it. Root sprouts are both a blessing and a curse. If you want to give things away, you've got plenty of trees to give away. I still went in here and cut all these down. They've made plums for me. Are they the best tasting plums? No. Are they better than plums you get in the store? Most definitely. The knock on them, I think the biggest problem, other than the same thing you get with peaches, you got problems with your brown rot, you got problems with the worms, but the biggest problems is these are not self-fertile. Almost everything else I've talked about, I think everything else I talked about is self-fertile. These are not. You have to have a variety of each one of them, or this over here is a regular native Chickasaw plum that varies in flavor and size. These improved varieties, they're going to be about the size of probably the size of a golf ball. They're a nice, pleasant to eat. You know, if I'm out here and I see one, I'll pick it up. I'll pick it up. You know, they'll make good jelly and jam and that type of stuff. I've let these grow too big. These are 5 to 6 years old, and you know, they're monster trees. I should have kept them pruned up better. I do have very fertile soil here, so, but I haven't fertilized them to speak of. And they're little bitty plants where I bought them. Now, the places I know that you get them, I don't know any places to get them locally. Mail order natives is where I bought them from. They were like, you know, they're under $20 a piece. I think one of them was $14, one of them $16, something like that, $12 to $16, right in that price. One's 12, one's 16, and one's 14. I think the Odom was $12, the Guthrie 16, and then Chickasaw is $14 right now, but they're sold out of them. The other place you can get them is just fruits and exotics, but they're going to be quite a bit more expensive. So they're in the $30 range. And then you also got to pay shipping on top of that. But they've been, you know, if you like plums, this is the only one in Southeast Texas I've grown. I've grown a bunch of different Japanese plums, and I bet you ain't got a dozen fruits off of them. These I have. So if you're wanting a plum, this would be the variety that I would recommend. I don't really recommend the plums. Now, if you're up around, like I say, if you're in the drier part of the county, if you're in the drier part of Texas, you can get by with some stuff. But I'm in 60-inch rainfall belt right now. We're dripping sweat because it rained and it's like a sauna out here. That's usually the way it is. And you know, different areas can grow different trees. But that's my 10 trees that I would plant, are the easiest to grow. Now I'm going to do a quick, the other ones that I've grew that are fairly easy is loquats. It's got kind of apricot flavor, but it makes the fruit in the fall, and you got to carry that. It blooms in the fall, and you got to carry that fruit through the winter. So that causes, you know, if it gets below 26 to 28 degrees, it's going to freeze the fruit. The tree itself can survive down to, you know, low teens. Pomegranate's another one you might try, but I haven't really had no success with it yet. But you know, I haven't really given it a fair chance. Honorable mentions: I mean, muscadine grapes is easy to grow. Mulberries, getting a Pakistan or Illinois Everbearing or Shangri-La. I just haven't grown them, so I'm not going to recommend something I haven't grown. And of course, you always got strawberries, but it's, you know, really to me, it's almost an annual for us out here. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any comments or anything you want to talk about, put them in the list below. I'll try to respond to all the comments. If you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you.